A veteran's voice can be powerful, and the stories they share emotional and captivating. Victor Killingsworth wrote down many of his experiences as an officer in the U.S. Navy during World War II. They're moments he still remembers vividly at the age of 99.
The announcement that we were at war.
Victor Killingsworth was just a kid from Taft attending UC Berkeley when the U.S. entered World War II. Killingsworth enlisted in the Navy only to be sent back to finish school.
The problem was the Navy didn't have any ships. We were in desperate times.
He then entered the service as an officer and was sent to midshipman school at Columbia University on the one-year anniversary of Pearl Harbor. Once completed, he got his orders.
We were given top secret orders. We couldn't share them with anybody else, any of our buddies. And we couldn't even open the envelope till we got off the campus.
Killingsworth was assigned to the USS Sumter, an amphibious attack transport carrying members of the 4th Marine Division. He chronicled his time in the service in his book, The Gator Navy.
I got so damn many stories.
Like the time he was sent out at night off the coast of San Diego to find missing boats during a training exercise.
And I got lucky. Within 20 minutes, I ran into them. They're all bunched up, and they were right close to the surf, just outside the whitewater.
Killingsworth volunteered for his first assignment of the war. Using his Higgins boat, he took a group of Marines nicknamed Carlson's Raiders onto the Kwajalein Atoll in the Marshall Islands, halfway between Hawaii and the Philippines.
Pouring down rain. The waves are 3 or 4 feet high. They put them in 6 rubber boats that they put me over the side of my landing boat, and I towed him in like a duck with a bunch of ducklings.
Once released, he was alone in his Higgins boat. The weather was bad, so he went inside the channel close to Japanese forces.
And so all night I ran up and down, and the Japanese must have thought I was one of their boats because I never got fired on.
At dawn, the Raiders returned.
Colonel had come out, and he had a Japanese Samari saber waving over his head, and he said, "Swabby," he called me Swabby. He said, "Call the fleet, tell them we got him."
His service then took him from the Marshall Islands to Saipan.
I led the first wave into Red Beach. We knew there was a coral reef there. So in the first wave I lost 2 tractors.
Oh.
Because they would come off of the coral and then expose their bellies. And that's a soft spot.
Victor leading a series of supply runs into enemy fire.
And of course they were shooting artillery at us from up the hills. I told the boys, I said, just don't try to load it on the docks. I'm going to pull in real close, throw it on the docks. Marines will come and get it.
Right before the Allies captured Saipan, Victor found himself in a truck driving to the north side of the island, which, unbeknownst to him, was still in enemy hands. He stumbled upon what's now referred to as Bonsai Cliff, an area where hundreds of Japanese soldiers and civilians were committing suicide.
We're telling them, don't jump, get on the truck, they'll take you in. We had that truck was packed with Japanese.
From Saipan, Killingsworth transported Marines across 3 miles of open ocean to the island of Tinian, landing on one of just 2 beaches that many thought was impossible to get to.
We landed 8,000 Marines in 24 hours.
Oh my goodness.
Off that beach.
After spending time working on a floating dry dock, Killingsworth was then assigned to the USS Artemis as a communications officer and headed for Iwo Jima. The ship carried heavy equipment and Marine reserves. In less than 24 hours, commanders called for the reserves, but not the hardware. As the ship moved into position, the enemy started zeroing in on them.
And the Japanese kept shooting at us, and as we were backing up, they were dropping the shells in front of us till we got out of their range.
Not all of Victor's memories were terrifying. His ship was sent to the Ulithi Atoll near Guam, all by itself.
Well, we just sat there, and that was a big atoll, and all of a sudden, all these ships started coming in. About 10 aircraft carriers, battleships, cruisers. It must have been 100 or more ships come in there. We were all by ourselves. Well, that was a landing force for Okinawa.
With the number of stories that you had, I figured this book would be a little thicker.
Yeah, and there's a lot I didn't put in there.
Victor was discharged soon after the war ended and returned to Taft, running a sporting goods store for nearly 4 decades. He also took part in numerous community projects over the years, including the Oil Worker Monument to mark the city's centennial.
It's the largest bronze sculpture this side of the Mississippi River. Collected about $2 million to build it.
His memories, however, are priceless. A career summarized into 260 pages with no ending in sight.
And Victor just celebrated his birthday. He turns 100 next November 11th, which is Armistice Day. Yeah. We want to tell your veteran stories. Send us information on someone who served. Include their name, picture, some basic information. Send those to us right here at mike@kero.com. You can also view a veteran's voice online at turnto23.com.